So with any specialized plugin or toolset, a common question is, who should learn it? And with muscle systems, it's always kind of fallen to the responsibility of the setup artist or rigging TD. And while that that's fairly logical, and that's going to be the case most of the time, especially if you're in a smaller studio. Uh, we really want to create a workflow to where artists that are used to dealing with shots, let's say that they're animators or simulation artists, um, we want to create an environment and a workflow that is easily learnable by those artists as well as character TDs. So again, character TDs and rigging artists are going to be the ones that are primarily going to have the foundation knowledge of Ziva, the bare bones assembly line code knowledge, if you will, of Ziva. However, we want to construct a workflow and an easy to use UI to where generalist animators, simulation artists, they can work through shots and relay data back to the setup artist, in a very intuitive way. So the first couple of chapters of this series are going to be very good basic Ziva knowledge that any number or of artists or any skill level can easily understand just the basics and fundamentals of the plugin. However, the later videos are definitely going to be geared more towards setting up the workflow. So primarily like rigging TDs, those people with scripting knowledge. That's the later type of videos. And at the end, we really want to have a solution to where any of these artists can pick up Ziva, start simulating character with shots, and actually produce good results. So that the rigging artist doesn't actually need to do shot work, because there's plenty of work to be done just from creating the rigs, maintaining the rigs, that rigging artist shouldn't also be responsible for shot work. Okay, so what type of studio or production should use it? And this is a kind of a big question, because um, it muscle systems have always thought to be fairly complex and long timeline endeavors. And so the aim of Ziva, like the creators of Ziva, they really wanted to create a tool or a package that no matter what, whether you were a student, an independent artist, an artist at a small studio, or even an artist at a large studio, whatever scale you came into the game at, they wanted to create a package to where you could easily take a character, add a muscle system, and get a good looking result. And while that is completely possible with the vanilla Ziva package, we are going to look at various tools and functions and just other type of workflow tricks and techniques that we can take that one step even further. So whereas it might have been a bit questionable to do something like a muscle simulation in a television, or an episodic timeline, we're going to construct a workflow where that's completely possible. And we'll be able to do quick iterations, turn around characters incredibly fast, not only in the simulation time, but also in the animation and just the shot work time. We regardless of your computer's power. Well, I say regardless, you need to have a somewhat decent computer, but you don't need to have you don't need to have the computer from 2001 Space Odyssey. You don't need to have IBM supercomputer to do any of these simulations. You can have just a pretty run-of-the-mill desktop computer, and I'll go over the recommended computer specs in later videos, but you don't need to have a very powerful computer to do this, especially with the way that we're going to be handling our assets. We're going to be setting up our characters in a very efficient manner to where we'll only be able to, or sorry, we'll be able to look at parts of the rig at any given time, and instead of the whole rig. So we'll be able to simulate much faster and adjust things much more quickly. So with that said, Ziva is a great solution for any number of studio types. Like whether you're dealing in feature film, animation, whether you're at a large studio or a small studio, it's definitely going to be easier the more artists you can devote to the setup time, the maintenance time, as well as the shot simulation time. But it's definitely possible to have only a handful of artists kind of working with the Ziva asset. The only questionable area that I would hesitate to recommend Ziva for, which would be the commercials and ad space, and that's just because it has, that has such an accelerated timeline compared to even like television or episodics. Commercials just have to be done so quickly, and unless you have a good library of muscle characters and have really nailed down the workflows that are a workflow like the one we're going to be learning in this tutorial, I would not recommend it out of the gate. You really need to have a good handle on muscles, as well as the specific plugin you're using, like Ziva. You need to know it inside and out to be able to combat all of the possible problems you're going to run into on that accelerated timeline, as well as how to handle all the iterations due to art direction.